Hail the Groundhog and the world's most watched weather forecast. Next on Kentucky Afield Radio. An unavoidable part of our daily life is weather. To stay a step ahead of what the wind blows our way, we monitor our daily forecast. And in a year of weather extremes, there are two forecasts that have come to stand apart from all the others. The first, will we have a white Christmas? The second comes just weeks later. Will we have an early spring?
Groundhog Day, it's been celebrated longer than any holiday on Earth, going back at least 2,500 years to ancient Greece.
Laurie Davison, the education administrator with the Salado Wildlife Education Center in Frankfurt.
They had a cult of the bear in ancient Greece, bears being hibernating animals. The cult of the bear idea was adopted by Germans. However, they changed their animal to the badger. The Germans immigrated to the United States, particularly into Pennsylvania, and became the Pennsylvania Dutch. Since badgers are hard to come by in Pennsylvania, they changed animals again to the groundhog.
Tradition holds that if the groundhog comes out of his hole and sees his shadow, then 6 more weeks of winter will follow.
February is usually a very cloudy month. They've kind of stacked the deck.
Bill Meck is chief meteorologist with WLEX-TV in Lexington. Bill is a forecasting veteran. However, famed groundhog Punxsutawney Phil has been in business since 1887. But Phil and Bill are at odds over the instability of seasons in transition.
You're hitting the midpoint of winter, but the days are also getting longer. And so you do get some warm days mixed in no matter what the groundhog says, but you can still get some nasty winter storms.
According to records, Punxsutawney Phil sees his shadow about 90% of the time. More on that in a moment. First, there's a whole story about the hole itself.
It can be quite extensive of a burrow system.
David McChesney is a wildlife biologist with the Kentucky Division of Wildlife. He says the burrow dug by the groundhog may be 5 feet deep and maze back underground for another 30 feet. There's a main entrance and usually several side exits. February 2nd is the midpoint between the beginning of winter and the first day of spring.
Groundhogs go into hibernation late October, early November, and they generally hibernate through the end of February. The only time they're going to come out 1st of February is if we had a lengthy warming trend or someone sticking an arm in a hole and pulling them out.
Groundhogs foretelling the weather isn't unique to Punxsutawney Phil.
In Georgia, there is a General Beauregard Lee, and we also have Pee-wee the woodchuck in Vermont. We have Sir Walter Raleigh, who is in North Carolina. Ottawa in Canada, they have a Weirton Willie, who is their national weather prognosticator and, of course, Punxsutawney Phil's biggest competition.
We're good for about 5, maybe 6 days pushing, but that's it.
Forecasting weather long-term, even with today's technology, is an educated guess at best.
They're actually running one model out to 15 days. It's kind of like for entertainment purposes only. They do run some of these very same models out 5 years, 10 years, 30, 40 years, and that's where some of the stuff they're basing global warming on. If I don't trust it after 5 days, why would you trust it at 5 years?
How bushy is a squirrel's tail? How thick is a corn husk? Nature, especially in folklore, has many ways of helping us interpret weather.
You know, you're saying the winter is going to end in 6 weeks. It's going to end in 6 weeks anyway. Can nature help us out short term? Yeah. You know, the high, thin cirrus clouds are Mother Nature's way of saying, hey, I've got a front coming in a couple of days, which also corresponds to the ring around the moon means rain soon. But trying to use nature to forecast an entire season, I wouldn't be making money decisions on that.
Nature can tell us a lot about the world we live in. What's happening in nature is often a first indicator of the good or bad that's going on right outside our door. Weather-wise, Doppler radar, NEXRAD, and other weather tools are all embodied in the groundhog, and his forecasting prowess isn't limited to predicting winter and spring. For example, if the groundhog were to come out of his hole and see someone washing their car, that means rain soon. If he sees me, for example, packing up for a camping trip, that means not only a day of rain, but high winds. And if the groundhog surfaces to see that we don't put stock into what we can learn from wildlife and nature, then that is a very dark day. Will we have an early spring? Bill Meck's models suggest temperatures will trend colder as we head toward March. We'll find out February 2nd if area groundhogs agree. After all, there is a shadow of a chance. Kentucky Afield Radio is a broadcast service of the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, your partner in the great outdoors.